Ben, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello.
And morning to everybody watching us on Facebook, or if you watch this later, it does go up onto Spotify, so people can watch and actually listen nowadays. And if you noticed on some of the podcasts nowadays, you can watch a video and listen to it at the same time now on Spotify. So that will happen at a later date. So, but yeah, thanks very much for watching and tuning in. Ben, lovely to meet you.
Hello. And you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if people don't know who you are, because obviously I'm based in Bristol and you're based in Essex, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people are not sure, who you are, what do you do, Ben? What is it you do?
Oh God. Well, basically, I'd call myself a pro musician, so that pays a mortgage. So that quantifies that, I guess. So I play a lot of live gigs. I've got a regular sort of band gig every weekend, which is really, really busy. I do stuff abroad with another band. Also record a lot in my place here, doing lots of sort of I'd say online sessions, but even with people I know. So we do stuff. It's not really online, but it is. So I do stuff here, and I do not only play guitar on radio jingles, but I do a lot of vocals on radio jingles. So all the annoying things where someone's trying to sing to you about buying a carpet or some solicitor or something, then I do a lot of those. So
Fantastic. Oh,
yeah,
mate, there's so much there. I'm really interested in unpacking. I'm sure everyone else is as well. Like, there's loads of stuff you said there. I'm really interested in asking some questions about. So I'm going to start with the band, if that's okay.
yeah.
So is this like a bit like myself? Is it like a band that's the wedding band, like function band, corporate band? Is that what it is, or not? Not completely. It's not that
No,
at all.
well, long story short, it's a band that started in 1979. And by the way, if people are wondering, I don't usually sound like this. I've got a stinking cold, and I'm just getting over that. So excuse for that. But yeah, no, it started in 1979. I was born in 80, so it's been kind of a long time. There's two original members left, and it's basically kind of like a pub band, but we do lots of pubs, venues, and we even play festivals supporting some big acts. We've done quite a lot of big act support, and anything from classic kind of, I'd say not really classic rock, but sort of rocky stuff, up to modern day stuff, like really modern. We do our own take on it, down to things like Luther Vandross. And we got such a broad repertoire. So you'd think, oh, that's sort of a wedding band, but we don't do weddings, but we've done a few events and stuff because people know what they're going to get. So
Yes.
it's basically stuff like that. So we can go from anything from Cars by Gary Newman to Muse to Linkin Park, Metallica to, like say, Luther Vandross, Snow Patrol. We do such a broad range. We're doing The Weekend, we're doing stuff like that. Lots of different bits and pieces.
I
Lots of
find
things.
that's really cool. Like I find that's similar to the band that I play, and we do the similar sort of thing. We do sort of everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's great as a guitarist because it keeps you busy. It's
Yeah.
fun. You don't get bored of just playing the same genre every single night. You're just constantly, if you're playing Muse and then all of a sudden you're playing Metallica and then you're playing Linkin Park, there's a lot of sound, effects changes or patch changes. You want to get it sort of authentic and get it right. So as a guitarist, I think that's the funnest band to be in, really. If you're doing all that sort of diverse music, you're not just sort of stuck doing sort of one style, I suppose. But
Well, that is the thing, because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if I have to play Mr. Brightside or Sex on Fire again, I'm probably gonna, which that's not gonna go away. But or ironically, the song that never dies, Zombie. It's a huge song in Essex. It's just for some reason the cover, but we've got a huge cover band scene in Essex, really thriving.
yeah,
And it's just one of those songs that just won't go away. But we try to, you just play what the crowd wants. But in terms of diversity, it's nice to be able to cover such a broad range instead of doing one thing and doing that sort of every weekend. It's quite nice. Plus, we don't have set lists, so basically we just call them, and so gauge on what the audience is like. I mean, touch wood, we pretty much get a really good crowd or sell out or whatever. We bang places out, which is really cool. A lot of bands do, but
yeah,
we're quite lucky in that respect. So it's nice to be able to now and again just chuck something in that's a little bit fresher.
yeah. How many songs would you say is on your set list, Ben? Like, Would you be able to put like a number on it in terms of, because it's great that you're keeping it fun and diverse, and that's really that's a fun thing to do. If you're like in the band and the drummer shouts, right, let's do this one, and then
Yeah.
you shout, oh, let's do this one. That's a really cool thing to do. That's really fun.
Oh God, I don't know. Probably. Well, because another thing, our bass player now, Gary, is a friend of mine. He came in when one of the original bass players left. Alan was one of the three who's been in it for years. He left about 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
Probably 2018, I think, it was around about that, 19. So he's learned everything that we pretty much do, but there's still a lot that we could do, but he hasn't done yet because we've sort of moved on from that. So technically, there's quite a lot. I'd say probably 150, 200, if not more. But you know, at any one time, probably the standard sort of that we pull from is probably 50, 60 tunes.
Yeah.
In rotation kind of thing. And we always get the ones that sort of keep pushing in, and then they'll drop, and then you'll play them again, say like 6 months later or something. You just pull it back in again. So, but then you try stuff, and if it doesn't work, it just disappears. But I'm quite a list maker, so I have a list of every single song I've done since I've joined them. And that's probably about that. But over time, they've done. God, it surprises me now and again. They go, oh God, we used to do this. Like, really? God, you know, and even like, you know, you wouldn't do it today because it's such a cheesy, horrible tune. But like, really, you used to do that? But then it's a sign of the times, you see. So it's back in the 80s.
I don't know why people love Mr. Brightside, Dakota, Sex on Fire.
Dakota, that's another one.
They're like they're the go-to tunes that every single week. And then some weeks, I bet you've tried this. Some weeks, because we've been so like fed up of playing it, we've taken it out of the set list and gone, like, just for one night we won't do Mr. Brightside. And then somebody near the end of the night goes, Mr. Brightside, and then it goes back in.
It's a standard. It's a standard kind of. It's a standard kind of approach, I think, because I think by now a lot of bands, you know, they do get fed up. They try that exact thing, and you get that exact response. And then on the flip side, you get the opposite. So when you do it, you get people who you can see it. You see either people's face go like that, and these are regulars, or people or they'll just like, or you can just see people start to move, and they'll go. You know the ones who don't like a song.
Yes.
So, but yeah, they're the ones that are kind of like, oh man. But hey, successful songs, people like them, you know, try and please the crowd, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I've always said, like, you know, no matter, I don't like the song, and I'm sure there's songs in your set that you're not keen on. There's songs that you just do, but we just do it to just keep, you know, it's fun. It's fun for if somebody's up there having a good time and enjoying themselves, we're doing a good job. That's the way I look at it. So we're there to do a job. So
yeah, you can't be too, unless you're specifically aiming to do a very specific thing, and you're being very self-indulgent, which doesn't really work when you're trying to be a cover band. Then you know, you just have to do these things to appease the crowd and keep something going. I mean, if you think about it, I'm sure the Stones are sick and tired of doing Jumpin' Jack Flash or any number one of their hits, but you know, I've never seen them live, so if I went to see them live, I'd want to see that.
Of course you would, yeah.
So, but you know, and it's you just, you know, it's just part and parcel of it, you know.
It is. And is that, so going back to what you said about the band and that, which is great. I mean, is there a because you said about you're performing live as well, like abroad, you're doing live abroad and things like that. So is that with the same band, or is that with a different band, or is that something?
No, that's a different band. That's a band called the Tarantinos, and it's more like it is a gig, but it's more like a kind of more choreographed sort of show. Okay. And that's been going since '94. I joined in 2008 because it's, you know, there's a lot of people who know each other, and I got asked to join, and it's basically a show that's based on all the Tarantino films. Okay. So we've all got suits on, there's costume changes, we've all got characters. You know, there's a lot of effing and jeffing, there's a lot of interaction with the crowd. It's you know, back in the 90s, way before I joined, a lot of them were a lot younger. There's been a few lineup changes, but the core members now have been doing it for years, and that was quite a party band at the time, and then it's got a little bit more serene as everyone's got older. But No, we do quite a lot in Switzerland.
Okay.
So I've done Switzerland, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Germany, Turkey, a couple of other places. I've got, again, all of my gigs are written down since I was 14, so I know exactly what I've done. But yeah, that's a cool band to go out. So we've got a tech rider, we've got a tech list. So that just gets sorted out, and when we get there, the amps there, I just take a guitar and a pedal board, and Martin the drummer will take sort of cymbals, and that's it, and everything else is kind of there.
That's
So
that sounds like a cool gig, mate. That sounds like a good one to
it's a
get.
really cool gig. You get to do some really cool venues, see some nice places, and it's just a good show. I mean, contractually, we ask for a certain thing, so depending on budgets, you'll either just scrape in of what you're asking, so you'll get something that's kind of pretty low key to stay in, and then the gig's quite a cool gig, but it's a small place, and then blah blah blah, and you'll get like a dinner or whatever. Then it goes right up to staying in a 5-star hotel. You're treated really well, you got a great gig, you got time off, you get taken out for dinner. It's a pretty cool gig, to be fair. I've done some really cool things.
Yeah,
It's a really good thing.
it sounds amazing, gig, mate. I mean, what's your experience for like traveling in that on a plane with your guitar and that? Has there been some mishaps, or have you been pretty good, fingers crossed? Or you got any stories of those or not? Has it
Yeah,
been
I
all
have
right?
actually. Yeah. Again, another long story short is that I travel with it in a like a flight case,
Mm-hmm.
So aluminium stripped ball end flight case. So the guitar goes in there, and then I'll use that extra space to put some extra clothes, toiletries, bits and pieces like that, and then that goes in the hold,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll take sort of the biggest pack I can take with a small pedal board. I don't need much in the band anyway for that. There's a few little bits. In fact, this is, oh no, it's not it. But just a board with some bits and pieces on, just to cover basics. But now and again, the case doesn't make it to the other end, which happened last year when I was in Switzerland. Didn't make it. And then it's happened a few times. It's hung around in airports and had to be couriered, and I've had to use another guitar. But luckily, because we do these bigger gigs, all the gear is hired in, and so I can just say to the organizer or tour manager, or whatever, just get hold of one for me if you can, and then they'll organize it, and it's pretty okay. Had it happen in a few countries really, but.
And have you always got it back eventually? You got your gear back eventually?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one in August, we actually flew out the day before because BA had cancelled some morning flights. So to keep costs down, you do the real early flight and do that. So we flew out on the Wednesday night, and it didn't arrive, and we were playing the Thursday evening, and it's like on a floating stage on the River Rhine in Switzerland. It's a gorgeous gig. It's great.
Sounds lovely, mate. Yeah, sounds lovely.
It's stupendously good. It's so good. And so I got a guitar for them, but they were really good. Swissport were really good about sort of trying to sort it out for me. Emails backwards and forwards. And I was just basically saying, well, look, I've got one now. If it turns up, great. But if not, just cancel it and leave it at Heathrow, and I'll pick it up on the way back. So she sent a message to us, saying, well, this is what I've sent to them. I said, oh, that's great. Okay. Because I didn't want to then leave on the Friday and then get back and then it turn up in Switzerland, like do that kind of thing.
Yes.
So everything was fine. Got to Heathrow, went to collect it. Oh, I don't think it's here. Oh, right. Anyway, it turns out, I think it is here. It's in the thing, but we can't go in. But I think the courier's dropping it off to you. Oh, great. Okay. You'll get it in the week. And then about a day or two later, in fact, it was the next day, I had a phone call. And it was real early in the morning. So I said, oh, hi, Mr. Newton. So would you like your guitar at the hotel? I said, I'm not there. Okay. Are you in Switzerland? I said, no, I'm back in the UK. Right. Okay. So we'll send it back to your house. Yeah. So I got it on the Wednesday. So, that's the danger of putting it in a hold. But then, it's more of a ball ache to sort of take it on and things like that. And the other thing is, because I have that, unless I pay extra for another case. If we're away for say 5 days on a tour,
Yeah.
um, you know, it's just I just chuck everything in and just squish it in and put everything in there, and you just have to mend and make do. You're trying to keep costs because at the end of the day, you want as much fee coming back to you
Hmm.
as possible. So
Does
uh,
that maybe change your decision of what guitar you take in the concern that maybe it might get lost somewhere? Does that do you normally just take your go-to guitar, or do you go, actually these have been lost a couple of times now, I'm going to take this one
excuse me.
because I'm not so precious about it? Or
Well, my number one, which is my PRS,
nice.
which is all battered and bruised and everything. Yeah, I used to use that for years doing that gig, and
Okay.
that's been left several times. But weirdly enough, what made me change the decision was I ended up using the black Strat instead, because one, it looks more suitable for the gig, and also it sounds better for the
Okay.
gig.
Yeah.
The kind of stuff that we do. And on the plus side, yeah, if it did go missing, I would be a little bit less, um, you know,
You're heartbroken
devastated.
about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So yeah, that kind of was a decision, but yeah, I mean, silly, really thinking about it. I should have just thought, yeah, I'll get something a little bit less sentimental. But no, in the beginning, it didn't make a difference. I just thought I'd use it, just take it. So
Yeah. The thing is, though, mate, when you're going to go do these gigs, it's like a really fun thing to do, and it's like an experience.
yeah,
You want your gear with you, your best gear that you enjoy playing with. Like, you want to take that guitar, your number one guitar. You want to take that because that's what you enjoy playing. You know, you can have a good gig if you take that guitar.
yes,
So I understand why you'd want to take that guitar. It makes sense. But yeah, in the back of your mind, it must be like, oh, hang on, that last time that didn't make it here, so I don't really want to lose that. Potentially lose that. I want to take, or maybe take this one.
yeah,
But what we'll do is we'll talk next about your studio and that. So
yeah,
about your studio sessions, and I think that's a nice way then to go into your gear, because I'm sure anyone watching this now, and I'm just going to check on the phone as well, because I haven't been checking the stream to see if anyone's got any comments or want to ask Ben any questions. Feel free to ask live. And anyone who rewatches later date, I'm sure Ben, you'll keep an eye on the stream, on the post, and
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure people will ask any questions and things.
yeah,
Um,
cool, yeah,
yeah, so I think that's a good place to start. So if we talk about obviously your session work, and also just before we went live, we were talking. I said all the good stuff happens before we go live, so we were
yeah,
talking about your studio, because we have a lot in common there. Because I've obviously built this. I didn't build it. I paid somebody to build it. You did build yours.
yeah,
So it'd be quite nice probably to talk about your studio, because there'll be people watching this who are quite interested in doing a similar sort of project.
yeah.
So I thought maybe we could start maybe there, and then talk about your session work, and then that might lead on nicely to your gear you got in the racks behind you. I'm sure people will be interested to find out about that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, yeah.
So should we start with your the build, what you've done, so where you are now? Like, so obviously you're based in Essex, aren't you?
Yes, yes. So the house got built in 2014. My father-in-law had a bit of land. We had it built, and we bought the house. But at the same time, I got the guys to put a concrete base down in the garden.
Mhm.
And you can see all this if you go on my Facebook page. I've got a what's it called, an album with all the stages of which I built the thing. And then, so the plan is he also had some garages that he was getting rid of to build another sort of bungalow thing. So I commandeered some of these panels. So they're the concrete panels that garages used to be made out of, that you could bolt together. So they're very heavy, very dense. So I measured everything up. So that forms the outside. And that's all painted, and I put a roof on, like a slanted cold roof on it and stuff like that. And I'm not a builder or anything, but I like using my hands. I can use tools. I'm fine with all of that. So so then I had that, and then I built a framework inside, the 70mm stud work frame inside. And then then all the plasterboard is acoustic plasterboard, which basically means when they make it, they shake it, and it gets all the bubbles out. So it's a much denser plasterboard.
Okay.
I did that, and then I did a sprung ceiling on resilient bars, so they're not coupled to the joists. And then the stud work's got 70mm thick acoustic rock wool in. And then a plastic sheet, then the plasterboard, and then I built the door, which is I think it's a 53mm thick solid fire door.
Right.
Wasn't cheap, but you know, you don't want anything else because that's the weak point really. So
Yes.
that's quite thick. And then did it all sealed. So you just literally pull it closed and lock it, and it's, you know, it's quite sealed really. So in terms of sound, I can be, it doesn't need to be loud in here. There's no point
No.
really, but
No.
it just means I'm sheltered from outside any noise, and I can quite happily play or record here or do acoustic work or whatever.
Yeah.
And nobody knows outside, so I can do vocals in here, all the kind of stuff. And in terms of recording, oh yeah, and sorry, so and then I did a feed we left when the house was built. I knew this was being done, so we had a circuit that was left free, and then I laid in the garden underneath, so you can't see it, is the armored cable and an external, which is underground as well, data cable, Cat5 cable. So
Yeah.
then everything's hardwired to the studio at the front of the house. It goes in the router, so it's just hardwired straight to the main computer here.
Yes.
Which is a custom built music PC. And yeah, that's pretty much it really in terms of here. And then for recording electric guitars, a lot of people are going to probably be cowering away or switching off, but I use a Kemper, and I did that primarily because of the just being able to enclose myself in here and do all the work from here. And I've used that exclusively on every bit of live a recording I've done since I got it back in what 2016 17, something like that. And I've just bought the stage as well,
Yeah.
with one of their power cabs as well, because I'm switching over to I want to make all my live stuff a lot lighter, and because I've got
That was my next question. My next question for you was going to be, do you have the Kemper in the studio, and then do you take an amp out live? And you just answered that by saying you're just switching over to using the Kemper stage.
Well, my original gear, which I've used for absolutely years, I'm not one to switch out. But I've had a 2x12. I used to have two 2x12s and a 6U rack with an old PV Power amp, Marshall Jam P1, and a Rocktron Intellifex. You know, I grew up in the 90s watching bands use those, like, you know, they all had these, and it was like, oh, yeah, cool. Had that, and I've used it for years with a big pedal board with a MIDI controller, and then pedals that just basically kit the front of the amp, and then a couple in the loop like delay and a chorus, and that's with a volume pedal and a wah, and that's pretty much it. But you know, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now to keep lugging that around, and I just thought, well, I want better sounds, so I could really nail certain sounds. I want it lighter, and I'm just getting bored. So I just wanted to, you know, something that was a lot quicker and able to nail certain sounds, you know. With that rig, with that rig, I can get really cool stuff with it, but you know, obviously with the Kemper or the new stuff, the Helix and stuff like that, you know, the effects, you can really nail a lot of tones and certain things, and that's what I'm aiming for. You know, just have a little bit more fun.
That's the same. That's the same as me, mate. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm so if you just got the stage, did you say? Are you gigging it yet?
Yeah, I'm not gigging it. I've got to kind of put the two systems side by side. So I've got the Kemper, the power cabinet as well.
Yeah.
Because I'll use that as a monitor on stage, because we do everything sort of get the stage volume. We got like subs and tops with a digital mixer, and everything goes through. Doesn't matter if it's a small place or a big place. Everything goes through and gets balanced.
Yes.
And then so I'll put two side by side, and then start programming the stage to get all the core sounds and then all the specific song sounds, you know. But yeah,
because I've had most people say to me, "That's an amazing sound. What is that?" And they come over and look at my rack that I got, and they go, "Where's the amp? Where's the Marshall? Where's the Fender?" And there's either that glaze and they automatically turn off and go, "That's not a valve amp," or there's that really intrigued like guitarist who's like, "That sounds so good. How can that sound so good? Like, what is that? Tell me more about this Kemper system." Like, I've had mixed reviews, and I'm sure you'll get the same, mate, when you take it out on the circuit. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Going from what I've had to that is not only going to be weird for me, but yeah, it's almost it's a weird thing, really. Yeah.
The band open to it as well, because it depends sometimes.
Yeah, my drummer sort of keeps you know, he's like, oh, you know, you use it yet? I said, no, I've only got it about 2 weeks ago, but I've used the Kemper for like years, but only just got that, and then just got the power cabinet,
Hmm.
and so but yeah, no, he's really up for me for doing it. My singer probably couldn't give a toss. My keyboard player, yeah, he dabbles in guitar. He's got a little he's got like a Helix, I think it's or the Pod Go or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, he loves his thing. He just noodles around at home and stuff. So
So he's already in the digital element anyway, sort of like he's quite happy with
yeah,
that. Sounds like.
yeah. Well, he still brings out a really big rack with like a mixer on the top, and he's got a Korg Kronos and another Korg at the bottom. So he does a lot of stuff with that. But
Okay.
I think I think for me it was just, you know, you everyone loves playing through a valve amp. Don't get me wrong, and it's nice, but I just can't be bothered lugging the stuff. And half the time, uh, with all due respect, the crowd are not interested whether you're playing through, you know, an old vintage Memory Man delay or
Hmm.
a Behringer delay. They're not going to hear the difference.
No.
They're not. They're just, you know, for the more discerning guys, so you know when the musos come, because again, there's a lot of musos in Essex. So, you know, you could usually tell them because they're like that. You know, I'm looking around,
That's
and
so true.
you know, and it's so, you know, but you know, if if you play for those, then you're sort of, you know, you're top you know, you're playing to them, and everything under that they'll be impressed. But you know, I think really it's just subconsciously for people, you know, if you put on a good show and also try and make the sound good,
Hmm.
then you've kind of won the battle really. So yeah, I'd like to keep it in, like I'll go in stereo and stuff like, because at the moment I only mic it in mono, because you know it's a stereo cab and it
Yep.
runs stereo, but it just goes in mono. But I think now I'll go in stereo, so I'll be able to set up some nice sort of
Like delays, I suppose, and things you can sort of stereo delay.
few
Yeah.
sort of delays, yeah, and things like that. And I use big swells, you know, volume reverb swells and all that kind of stuff. And it's just nicer and quicker. And I think, you know, um, it just tightens everything up in terms of time and sound and everything like that. So yeah, that's what I
I'd
do.
even arguable to say, like, obviously I love using a valve amp as well. I have done over the years, and I'd even argue and probably open a can of worms by saying this live, but I actually think it's sometimes better than a valve amp, because I used to have inconsistent gigs. One gig I'd sound amazing, but that sounds on the money tonight. Sounds really good. Next gig I turn to and go, what's gone? I've done nothing. I've changed nothing, and it just sounds crap. Like, it doesn't sound any good. But then the Kemper, always for me, since I've got it now, every single gig is consistent. What I
Yeah,
get in my ears is consistent sound every single gig. All I do is go up and down on my in-ear monitors volume for between gigs, and that is it.
that's
There's
pretty
nothing.
much what I would do. That's pretty much what I do now. In fact, I've got mine here actually.
Yeah,
You're with Cosmic, aren't you?
yeah. I'm not using them now. I keep these. These are my Shure ones I keep in here for in studio stuff, just
Oh
doing
yeah,
this
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing. But my Cosmic ones are in my gig bag, ready. Yeah, gigging.
Oh
They're
yeah,
amazing. Just
yeah.
to talk quickly about those. I don't know which ones you've got. Have you got the C? Is it C6P? Is it
I
or?
went with the fours.
Okay,
Weirdly,
yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know. I should have just ponied up more dough and got the sixes. But those, I mean, they're great. I mean, really, for the protection, you know, because you know I do have a touch of sort of tinnitus, but my top end is still really good,
Yeah.
luckily. And there's a bit of high mid that's sort of scooped out, which I've had here when Giselle Flower did my molds, my impressions. I got her to do a hearing test. I saw where the graph went. So on both ears are pretty consistent, but there's a little bit there. But yeah, not only for the isolation, but the sound. And I used them on the first gig that I had them and put them in. It was like, oh God, why have I been using generics all this time? Because your generic, I've got some Shure generics and they're great.
Yeah.
And either use the Comply tips or some thick rubber domed ones, and they're great. But at the same time, they can sometimes just work loose,
Yep.
and I just find just doing that now and again. And I was getting a bit fed up of that, because you'd be playing, then you realize half one of them sort of had just come out a little bit in the leakage,
Yep.
and it's like, oh, and then you're putting it back in again. And but yeah, going with them, they're great. They're great.
If you've
But
got a
yeah,
budget, as you said, molded's the way to go, isn't it? Like, if you've got the budget for
yeah,
that, it's definitely,
definitely.
once they're in, they're in. They don't Mine don't fall out, and I'm sure yours don't. They're fitted to
No,
your ears, aren't they? So,
yeah, they're
um,
they're great. I think everyone should, anyone who's doing music, regardless, I think really if well, no, if you're doing sort of really quite lounge jazz stuff, I think I don't really,
No,
you're not going to be blasting your ears out. But
no.
I think if you are doing any kind of live work, even studio work, live work especially, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you've got hearing protection or some decent in ears, you'll be so thankful of it later.
Mm.
I've really kind of taken an interest in it over the last 5 years or so. I just because I just that's all we have.
Yes.
So if we and I know people who have gone to gigs for years, and I keep saying, "Oh God, you put the earplugs in at least." Oh no, that's all right. It's all right. Sounds great. And then they're saying, "Oh yeah, I've got this. I've got that tinnitus now." So I told you, yeah, I know. And it's quite heartbreaking because it's not something that you really want when it's bad.
No, not
It's
at all.
terrible,
It's
awful.
always a concern like that. I had when we had a guest on last week, we were talking about he had an injury with his tendon on his in his hand, and that was one concern of mine. And the other one is obviously your hearing. Like that's a
Yeah,
big one. If you lose your hearing or you start getting tinnitus, or and I've done gigs, I'm sure you have years ago, and we're a bit sort of naive. When I was 18, 19, I'd go out, turn the Marshall up as loud as it would go, thrashing it out, and then at the end of the gig, you're like, as you're driving back in the car, you got that horrible high pitch ringing. And
yeah,
back then, you're like, that was a good gig. That was a good gig. Like,
yeah.
but now you're like, that's stupid. That was such a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, not something that was and from a monetary point of view, never had the money to get anything. Well, it wasn't really about them, to be
No.
fair. It wasn't really about them. We're talking back in the 90s.
Mm.
So it wasn't there. Earplugs were, but that really killed everything.
Yes.
Just you put them in, you really didn't really hear much at all. So
No.
but any loud thing I do now, anything, even doing the grass, cutting the grass or anything, banging, whatever, it might seem only for a short space of time, but if you do that over the period of your life, everything will start to degrade.
Yeah.
There's only one thing that has to happen, and your ears are well fudged, basically.
Well,
Uh,
people laugh at me when an ambulance drive past on the high street, and I'm like that, and
yeah,
put my hand in
yeah,
my ear. It's not
yeah,
because like it's like a horrific sound. It's just like I'm trying to protect my ears.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
so loud when it goes past. It's just like things like that you can really do some damage. So
yeah. There's nothing macho about having all that loud sound because eventually it will get you. It
yeah,
really will, and then your ears will be buggered, and you won't be able to. Your top end will go. If you're mixing or you're doing anything, everything, all the top end will start going up because you
yeah,
can't. You're like, oh, that sounds good, and everyone's like,
yeah,
pressure's coming off their face. It's just or volume, more volume.
yeah.
It's just not, and also for your own enjoyment, you're not going to hear anything.
Exactly.
So,
Well, let's. I'm
yeah,
going to open out to some questions as well, and we're going to carry on talking. But what we'll talk about next, if it's okay with you, is obviously you're a session musician and you do lots
yeah,
of stuff for jingles and adverts and things like that. That's quite interesting.
yeah,
If we can talk about that, and then we'll go through maybe some of your guitars. You've got quite a few on the rack there. Maybe
yeah,
just go through briefly what which ones you use for different things. That'd be quite cool for people watching, especially guitarists and things.
yeah. Cool.
But yeah, if anyone's got any questions and are watching this, because I see people are watching, don't be shy. Please feel free. I'm sure Ben would love to answer some questions that anyone might have.
Yeah, do something if you want.
Oh yeah, so just check in. So people are watching. So don't be scared. Just feel free to, if you have a question you're watching, or you maybe just enjoying, watching the interview. But yeah, if you have something you want to ask Ben, then feel free to fire away, and I'll try and keep an eye on it as well.
Cool.
Yeah, Ben. So let's talk about your session work then. So, how did you get into session work? How did you get into that?
Um, okay, so I started playing guitar when I was 11.
Hmm.
I got into my first band at school about 13. We started playing live 14 through to the age with that band, because they were 2 years older than me. So 14 through to the age of 16, because then the guys went off to uni. And then at the same time, I got asked to join another band. The guys were in there, I don't know, at that time, probably been about in their 40s, something like that. And we did lots of American punk and English stuff, and ended up doing a lot of David Bowie and things like that, all the way up to year 2000. So I was 20. Around that time, I started doing, was doing singing as well. So I was trying to break into that, and I got some sort of agency stuff going, and I was doing TV extra work and stuff like that, and some ad idents and things that you would like, sponsorship things, and then some promo work. So that was around 2000. I did a lot of work with Coca-Cola. We did two big promos for them at the Millennium Dome, it was called then. So I was 20. So, and then the band split up about that time, and then I didn't play live for another 5 years. I'll get to that in a minute. But the guy who knew my mum and dad from the town phoned me up once and wanted a guitar player to do something in town, which was just in a little studio. Anyway, me and the guy who ran the studio, we still know each other today, and we ended up doing lots of work. So within that 5 years, between 2000 2005, which I did about 4 live gigs in that point.
Okay.
People going, oh, you're going to get in a band together. But I was doing a lot of studio stuff with him. We was writing, trying to get some production deals going with some artists and getting them signed and writing and doing lots of projects.
Mm-hmm.
So did that. So I cut my teeth doing that. I did A-level music tech and GCSE music and stuff like that. And ironically, I wasn't really interested in the recording side at that point, which is quite amusing. But then we used to do stuff. We used to be in the studio all the time. So I cut my teeth doing that. Early versions of Cubase. We was using reel to reel at that point. Then we ditched that and went to just doing it all in the computer. So I learnt loads there.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And then I thought, well, I want to get my guitar playing back up to speed. So not that I'd stopped, but I just wanted to sort of really push forward, you know. And so Phil Hilborn, do you know Phil?
Yeah, I know. I know of him as a guitarist.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've met him or spoke to him. I may have watched him actually live a few times, but I've not actually.
Oh, he's a great guy. Well, he's had everyone. He's taught everyone. So he only lives. He's literally like 15-20 minute drive away. It's not even that really. So I started to go to him because I used to see him years ago around my area, and then he got me the gig with Expose, who's the band I was talking about earlier. So
Okay.
and then so I had lessons with him, blah blah blah, and then everything just snowballed. So I was starting to do bits and pieces, still writing, and so all the studio work come together. But then I get people to start asking me, "Oh, can you do this or whatever?" So, and that I was using my friend's studio to do that in,
Mm-hmm.
and so then that just ran for quite a while. And then when we obviously got here, I was able to really just do everything on my own steam. So that just meant that, you know, I didn't have to go somewhere else, or I wasn't going to somewhere for someone. I could just then become a bit more self-contained, do it myself. So do a few things, do the job really well, and then you just get stuff come back. And then I start working with a guy called Mark Wickenden from Sonic Boom Music, and he does radio jingles, etc. And we do another thing which is coming up, I'll tell you about later. But and that's how I did all of that. So as well as the radio jingles, I get people asked to do stuff on their tracks. So sort of country, pop, stuff like that. It just a mishmash of different bits and pieces, really. So what I do is I'll tend to do everything here. Get a brief, get a demo come through. It's pretty standard, really, you know, the way it works. You know, you get a demo, you might just get sort of really sloppily played acoustic with a vocal or something, whatever. And then I'll sort of roughly have a listen, chart it out a bit, and then I'll record it, and I'll just build it up and just give as much as I can. I'll have a fee on it, and I'll just say, well, look, this will cost you this. And I'll do as much as I think that the track needs, whether they use it or not, doesn't matter. No. And then just send it off, and that's basically it. And then the jingle stuff is the same. I'll get a brief come through, so I might have to kind of be left to my own steam to do the top line. Follow the top line might be a piano melody with a vocal, so I'll just do it, and then I'll add the harmonies on the top. I'll track it all here, send it back, and it gets mixed somewhere else, and that. So yes, kind of the kind of thing that happens, really.
Is that what keeps you most busy Monday to Friday, would you say, the session stuff?
At the moment it comes and goes, really. This year I'm going to make a bigger conscious effort to kind of be able to sit out here a bit more and get that come in, because, you know, I can make a cup of tea, come out here, download the files, do the work here, send it back, and that's the day done. You know, well, it depends what you get, really. Sometimes it takes all day, because again, when you're doing it yourself and you're not clock watching, I'll tend to play something and I'll be really critical, and I'll do it again. sometimes you just do something and you'll get take, and then other times I'll be stupid with it, and I'll get sucked in and realize, look, it's not economical. They're paying a bit of money. They're paying the money,
Yes.
so it's what they're paying is regardless. So, but to me, for my time, you start realizing, oh, I spent a bit more time on this. I should have really.
But that's the creative the creative side of you being a musician. It's that as well, isn't it? You sort of like have an idea and then it propels out like that. And even though they're paying you a set fee and you're like, I only need to do this, but your brain's going, but this will sound amazing, this will sound good, and this will sound really cool.
Yeah, I do it. I don't do it all the time, but sometimes I do it. And I'm trying to really kind of, from a business point of view, like quash that a bit.
Yes.
But in my mind, I'm always I mean, this is a bit of advice, really, is that with anything, studio playing or live, especially studio playing, I'll always treat it like I'm being asked to do something that 6 million people are going to see on the telly or something, and that it's, you know, the biggest thing ever. Yeah. So I always treat it like that, because then what will happen is, not only do you give the best for the client or whatever, but you're getting practice yourself. Because you could look at it like, oh, well, you know, it's somebody's they just want it to play their parents or something or whatever. It's a bit of fun song. You could just go, oh, set a mic up, just place it anywhere, bang, 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 or just record a bit. Oh, that'll do. Yeah, send it. How's that? Oh, yeah, just give me the money.
Yeah.
But really, and then when it comes to something that's really important, in my mind, you think, oh God, right, okay, and then you're kind of trying to pull yourself up. Well, if I always aim and imagine that any job is the most important job ever, and treat it the same, then if you then get something coming that's really important, you're kind of prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's your stamp as well, isn't it? Like, it's your stamp on everything. You're putting like your, you know, your brand stamp that this is your level, this is your, you know, what you want to produce most times, like every time you do your session. So I get it. I completely get why you do that.
It's a good practice to do that. I think.
Do you have a proud session that you're most proud of, like your biggest piece of work that's come in, or maybe even like the smallest piece of work, but you've enjoyed it so much? Is there like a session that stands out for you? I know there's probably so many you've done, but is there like a proud moment that you thought, oh, you've heard it on the radio maybe or something, you've gone, that sounds awesome, I'm really glad I did that?
There's a couple, there's a couple. I can't really recall. There's I remember the first time I did hear one of the jingles on the radio.
Yeah.
And that was like really cool. And there was another one. We were my in-laws, their friends, we were over at theirs a couple of summers ago. And it was really cool because they got a really nice house. It got a pool outside, and it was one of the hottest days. It was 2018. It was then. And no, it wasn't. It was 19, sorry. And it was August, and we was in the pool, and they had the radio on. It was a lovely day, and all of a sudden, one of the jingles came that I'd done ages ago. Yeah. And weirdly enough, I looked up and I sprang out the place. I said, "That's me. That's me. That's one of mine." And they looked at me and said, "Is that you?" I said, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "We know them. They're friends of ours." It was a what was it? It was a carpet shop, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
And that was really cool. But a lot of them, there's a few that have been around Essex. There's one at the moment. There's a Backhouse Solicitors, which is in Chelmsford. That's all me.
Yeah.
And I think a friend of mine, Annie, she's on that as well. We did that together, but she did that hers. There's a couple in Essex, and then a lot of them have either been up north or, weirdly enough, down south, and towards sort of Cornwall, Dorset area.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
I don't get to hear them, but yeah.
And you should be proud of that as well. Like when you said, like, you jumped out the pool and you sort of heard that on the radio. That's a proud moment. Like most people probably don't get that, but it's a cool thing. You're like, you know, that's me I'm on the radio.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I do get the masters back, so I do get a bounce of the actual thing, because once Mark mixes, because a lot of the work I do with Mark, so I say once you've mixed it, or whatever, can you just send me a track back? So I've got sort of you know, a folder full of all the stuff, so for posterity, nice. Just so I've got it. But most of the time, I don't actually hear them what happens to them. So
Yeah, it's great. I mean, let's have a chat then about your rack of guitars behind you then, because I'm sure people are waiting to sort of hear about that as well.
oh
And
god,
if you're a
yeah.
guitarist, so there's so many there. We'll go through briefly because I'm worried about your time as well. Because
Oh, my time's fine. No, I'm good. I'll carry on all day. I can chat for it.
well, let's go through your rack then. Let's start from. I think number one was on the end there. The PRS was the one you showed us earlier.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
have a little.
So this is my number one. I got that in 2005.
Is that a
It's just
custom 24? Is it or
it's a
not?
custom 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mateo blue. Um, and it looks the color that I want actually now than it does when it looks. Some people say it's green, but it's not. It is blue.
Yeah, that's blue. Yeah.
It does change with the light. So, but yeah, I took the humbucker out. I put a single in there because I use that single. I do coil tap quite a lot.
Okay.
I mean, thing is
Yeah.
smashed to pieces. You know, tuners do need changing now. They're starting to get a little bit knackered. There's chips all over the thing, all here, all chunks out of it. The wood's all wearing away. I don't think you really.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see the sort of scratches in the back in that.
Yeah. So that's the number one I use for a lot of stuff. I bought this. I think this was just over a year ago, 2 years ago. Just one of the SE245s,
Okay.
which I use in E flat, and then I strip the back because it's quite a thick gloss on these, and I didn't like it.
Didn't like
so I
it.
took
No.
it back. So I've got that. It's quite a dark sounding guitar, which I might change this out in time.
Okay.
But, yeah, just got one of those. An early 90s Japanese Squire Strat, which I put a Wilkinson trem on,
Okay.
the pushing arm, because God knows why they keep making them with the screwing arms. I hate them. So the pushing arm, and then change the pickups for. It wasn't an expensive set, but yeah, just to change them out, and they sound good. Put I think it's a Tusk nut on there. And some locking tuners.
Nice.
Just like a tuners. But that's I use this on the Tarantino's gig and quite a lot of sessions actually, because it's just nice for certain sounds, you know. This was just like a cheap telly. The only original thing about this is the body, which I stripped and spray painted. Like, I don't know why I went green, but it's not
nice.
because status quo, although they are cool. Supported them actually with the Tarantinos back in 2012.
Oh wow.
They were great. They were really cool. And then so everything's, you know, I sprayed it all, but I use that for certain things. Although I do want to get a nice telly. There's a lot of cheap stuff in here, just because it's fun. There's a Harley Benton kind of Les Paul Junior thing here that I bought, with just like a P90, which is good for just sort of a nice different tone, and also set up for if you want to do some open tunings or some slide stuff. You know, that's just a little sort of workhorse guitar. That's pretty cool. There's Epiphone Les Paul, which I use for, that was primarily an E flat, but I use this for different things now.
It's a nice finish. Is that Honey Burst? Is that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think. Oh God, I can't remember. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. But
you changed the pots on that, the volume and tone, or was it?
Oh, only because I'm not a fan really of that. I generally just use volume. I ride a volume a lot, and the tone I don't really use. But I kept forgetting what was what, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and then I changed the neck. That's a PAF Pro Damasio thing. Because the other pickup broke, I think. But yeah, I'm just going to go back to some sort of regular pots and take it back, and I might get a brushed nickel kind of cover on that just for the look of it.
Yeah.
But that needs restringing. That's a bit sort of battered. Then I've got this was given to me a friend of mine before he went to the States, and he was given it. It's just a parts caster. All of that is from a 70s Strat, apart from the pickup, which I've actually got spare. Just a reverse headstock thing. Used to have a locking nut on it, and then I put a normal sort of nut in there and put a little shelf on there, but that's all its next string through.
Nice.
Grover tuners, that's pretty cool for some things. And then kind of last but not least, I've got I bought a Dan Electro baritone.
Okay.
So I use that, but I've used it on quite a few things, weirdly enough. Not just for heavy sort of stuff, like the old school sort of country-esque stuff, and a few sessions and some backing tracks and things. So use that. The only thing I don't like about this is the hideous shape. It's cool when I got it and I thought, that's a really cool looking thing. But if you try and stand the thing up,
yeah, it doesn't want to.
It's useless. That's why I have to put it in the rack like that, because it won't fit, which annoys my OCD terribly. There's a 112 Pacifica there, which my friend Mark gave me for payment for a jingle, because I said, oh, I'll tell you what, I'll have that for payment. He says, yeah, oh yeah, all right. And then I got this, which is cool, which I've used a few times, which is an 80s. It's Casio, but it's made in Japan.
Casio, I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember who made it. I don't know whether it's a Fender thing or something, but I do know and I've forgotten. But it's a lovely guitar actually.
Yeah.
But it has the MIDI pickup in it.
Oh, okay.
So you can trigger MIDI with it. And just a normal guitar, you can either have both going or whatever. But yeah, it's quite weighty, and you got all the gubbins in the back.
Yeah, yeah. That's
still got the cover on it. Yeah, it's a nice guitar actually. It's not too bad. But I don't really use it that much. I've used it live a few times to trigger some stuff.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then I've got a Squire PJ bass.
Nice. Yeah.
Which is handy for sort of more vintagey things or just normal bass stuff. Mm-hmm. Oh, call out if everyone's getting bored. And then I've got this, which I bought, which I only got for 5-string because our original bass player bought one. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And I've used this on quite a lot of things. It's a bit sort of LA, but you know, I've set it up so it's got a really nice action. It's quite versatile, and I use that. And plus, because of the low B, you know, that's nice now and again. But just for some, you know, putting tracks down, I've used that on a few sessions as well.
I like the all black on that with the headstock matching.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, isn't it? It's
nice.
It's a bit sort of
metal.
Yeah. And then my workhorse acoustic, which is a Takamine, which I use this for pretty much everything. But there's a few other acoustic. I do a lot of acoustic stuff, especially now with the country stuff we're doing. But yeah, so that I use. And then there's a little Walden kind of small guitar, but that needs sorting because the intonation is out on this. It doesn't seem to. That's a pain in the backside, but that's pretty cool for tracking. You know, something underneath. There's a different tone if you're building layers up.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the stuff is just that's like a nylon, but that's a friend of mine's, and he wants that. The bridges come off, so he wants to do that. There's an old 1960s thing there, which I was given that I've got to renovate. And then here is a Yamaha FG something, can't remember, which I've strung for Nashville high tuning.
Okay.
So that again, use that for putting underneath tracks, so you can, you know, you got the high strung and the normal strung, and so you can blend the two. So that's handy. Ukulele, which I haven't actually used in anger yet for anything. And then a mandolin, which I use for, we actually do in the band, we do Losing My Religion, so I use that.
Oh yeah. And
also I've tracked with that for some of the bits as well, and that's got a that's a Canadian company, Shatton, I think they're called. Yeah, Shatton or Shaitan, and that's like a contact pickup.
Okay.
So you just plug in there, and so I go into the PA with that. But yeah, I've tracked with that a few times as well for some things.
Nice.
And then I've got a really nice nylon guitar which is in the office in the house.
Yeah.
And then my first guitar that my mum and dad bought me, which I still use, which I love. What else is in there? I think there's one other. I think, yeah, and that's pretty much it for guitars. So
there's no hidden guitars anywhere.
no, just trying to think. Is there anything else? No, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's an awesome
there's
collection
not.
of guitars.
So there's not much there that's expensive.
Doesn't need to be though, does it? I think.
But no, to be fair, there's that argument of, well, you know, are you really going to know the difference when you listen? I think when it comes, if you got something really cheap compared to something that's even mid or expensive, yeah, you're going to hear a difference. But there it gets to a point. Then after that, it's really, I think, it's just what it feels like to the player. So if you listen to something, you know, you're going to go, oh, that sounds great. Oh yeah, what did you use? Oh, yeah, it's like an old Hello Kitty Strat or something. You like through a, you know, whatever. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
You know, do people really know sometimes?
No, and a lot of it is, as you said, like some of those guitars you just said, that it's changing pickups, changing hardware. That's the bit I feel like makes most of the improvements. Or like you change the tuners on a couple of those guitars. You said you put locking tuners on some of those.
Yeah.
That's sort of the thing that you can do to some of those sort of slightly cheaper guitars to make them into absolute workhorses. I'm sure you use most of those on a lot of sessions. So
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, these first four get most of the use, really.
Yep.
It just depends. Some of them need some work. They need the strings change. Haven't been used for quite a while, or if like live, I need something else to use for a certain tuning or whatever. I'll just like whip a guitar and take that out. So
that's a weekend maintenance task. That is, if you want to change all the strings on all those instruments, there, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's what I do it. So yeah, and yeah. So I mean, my main guitar. That gets a regular string change, but to be fair, I've started using the coated ones, and it does make a difference. And coated acoustic now, I got a really good deal from a friend of mine. I got a job lot of elixirs for a silly amount of money, because he knows someone. They weren't stolen, by the way. They were ex promo. So but I got them good. And I tell you what, that's a game changer, because for acoustic, if all of a sudden you get a call say, oh, jingle or something come in, oh, can you do a bit of, you think, oh right, and then you go, oh, the strings as dead as hell. So then you have to factor in 20 minutes whipping them off quickly and put some new ones on. I'm pretty quick at doing it, but even so, it's like, and then you just want to sit down and get going.
It's more stretching them in, isn't it? Like, as you said, you're quick at changing them, but it's still like they've got to settle down a little bit, and you can't jump straight into a session, can you, recording with that?
You just got to get them in and then whatever, and then make sure they're, and then you're fine. But the coated ones, they last a long time. They keep the zing there and the freshness. And I found the only the thing that really does it is that I don't think my sweat's that acidic, but I think I found the thing that really kills them in the end is just that they just stretch and they lose the tuning. They can't hold tune because the metal goes before the coating goes.
Yes.
But they still sound reasonable.
Well, somewhere in the drawer here, I've always used elixirs because I always think that, like you said, the coating is like.
Yeah, these are the ones.
There you go. Look, see, this is not a snap. This is not an Elixir like promo. We're not sponsored by Elixir. No, although if they fancy doing that, feel free. But I just get the 3-packs, and it's more expensive, but it works out cheaper, doesn't it? If you get sort of the 3-packs and stuff, but not as cheap as your deal by the sound of it. It sounds like you got a good promo pack for that.
I did get a really good deal. Yeah, I got 12 packs for
crazy money.
At least 100 quid less than what you'd pay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. So, they are expensive, but as you said, they do last, and you know you're changing less. So, you know, I think I can't remember if you look online and you can get those probably I think £15-16 a packet. Is it like average? I think
something like that. Yeah, I think they're about £16.99 last time I checked. But I do scour now to find. I'll even try different makes. So the last make I had of non-coated, I got a pack of Ibanez.
Oh yeah,
because then I'll work out what they cost. Because everything's gone up.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
I mean, even I was using Rotor Sound for age because I used Diodarios for years, and the company I got them from, String Busters, they went belly up, and they just disappeared. I don't know what happened there. And they got them really cheap. And when they went, a friend of mine had a little unit doing pro sound, and he had just a little thing, and he got Rotor Sound. So I started using them, and they were silly money. Sort of like $3.50 a pack or $3.99. So I was using Rotor Sound, but even now Rotor Sound, because he's packed his thing up now. But even now Rotor Sound, they're like £4 something, and they were the kind of cheapest. And plus they're British. But And then the legacy ones, which Strings Direct do, I think it's an open secret that everyone knows their rotor sound. You know, the legacy brand that they do.
Yes.
I'm pretty certain.
I was just going to mention that actually. I was going to say that if anyone watches, Strings Direct is where I get my strings from mostly.
Yeah.
Um, I have a discount code for there. So if anyone does watch this, like I will drop that in the. Or if you want to message me and ask me, I'll send you what the discount code is for that. But yeah, it is helpful. It just saves you like sort of. I think it's something like it's not quite even 10%. I think it's 7.5%. But it all adds up if you're doing a big string order. So
Yeah.
it does help out. So,
Oh,
but
cool. Okay.
but Ben, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. And I'm sure we could both sit here all day chatting about guitars and
Yeah.
music, and it's absolutely fascinating. But as I said, I think it's been fantastic to meet you online and chat to you about these sort of things. But if anyone does have any questions for Ben, like I know that we're doing this sort of 11 o'clock in the morning, so most normal people are working.
Yeah.
So
Most normal.
non-musician people are sort of mostly
Yeah,
working, aren't
9
they?
to
So
5ers. Yeah.
yeah. And that's cool. But if they want to, feel free to comment after the stream and that, and I'm sure I said you'll see it. And if not, I'll tag you in it anyway. If someone asks you a question or whatever, and I'm sure you'll be happy to answer that. If
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure people have questions. Maybe that sometimes people are a bit intimidated to put something on a live thread, but they might put something afterwards where they might want to ask you about one of those guitars in the rack. They might want to ask you about some of the gear you use for recording, stuff that
Yeah.
I couldn't get into the nitty gritty with you about. I'm sure there'll be questions people ask and want to know a bit
Oh,
more about jingles and what you do in
there's
session work.
loads of bits. I mean, the other thing was teaching. I mean, I used to
Oh
teach
yeah.
a lot as well. Yeah. So, but I have not done that properly for a couple of years now.
Okay.
I mean, that's another kettle of fish. But yeah, that was another thing I did.
Yeah.
But you know, um, I just got a bit burnt out with it a little bit. I know you do your thing, which is great,
Yeah.
and it's a really good business model. And I didn't get to that point. I was doing more. I did work for the school, my old school. I was doing peri work there, and plus private stuff. Yeah, and in the end, it just started to dwindle a bit. People, they just, because people give things a go, and they just like, you know, oh, it's not really for me, or they get, you know, taken onto something else. But you do find that then sometimes those people that you've had as kids, give them a few years and then they pick it up again. They go, actually, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I want to do it. And they're doing it for them then.
Yes.
And then they come back, or,
Yeah.
that's quite interesting. But that's another whole kettle of fish.
It is, yeah. I mean, I said I do enjoy it. We had a conversation last week with a guest about teaching because that was his main sort of focus, similar to me. Like, and I do love it. I think for me, the secret to enjoying teaching, carrying on enjoying teaching, for me was I'm in control. If I'm in control of my own business, then I enjoy doing it and I enjoy building it up and I enjoy planning the content because it's all down to me.
Yeah.
But when I was doing teaching in schools, it did sap my enjoyment. I got to be honest, it did. I found it really hard because, as you said, like most of the students sometimes don't, maybe don't want to be there, or the parents are just paying just because they want them to have lessons, but they don't really want to be there. They're more interested in chatting with their friends in the group, and I just found that really hard. Like I was just constantly just people managing. Like it was like a nursery, really, trying to keep everybody sort of. And I didn't enjoy that, and that's why I stopped doing that very quickly. But I think if with teaching, my advice would be just if you can keep it, if you can manage it yourself as a business, and you're in control of, obviously students are going to ask what they want to learn, so you have to sort of plan stuff, and sometimes you do end up teaching stuff that maybe you wouldn't want to teach, but sometimes you actually enjoy those things. But if you're in control of your own sort of destiny and your business and things, I think it's more enjoyable, and you can sort of focus a bit more on it, I suppose. But
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think it's quite, being self-employed, it has its ups and downs, and it has its,
hey, it's tax return day today, isn't it? Just checking that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm
Just
going
in
to
case
do. I
anyone's
don't
left
know
it.
why I had mine done early in the year. They're all done and ready to go.
Yeah,
I just
mine's
didn't
done
want to
as
give the
well.
money over.
No.
But I'll do it today. Yeah.
Just in case anyone's watching, this is a good reminder. It's the last day today, unless you want to get charged on anything. But
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Do that sort of send. Oh,
yeah.
But yeah. But no, it's doing it yourself is quite rewarding. Like say you're in control. You can sort of plan things. You kind of your own boss. I always, when I did lessons, I learned kind of early on that, I was, weirdly enough, I was trying to do something exactly how I wanted. And then I found that I was thinking that sometimes it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. It was just something's not working here. And then I realized it snapped one day. I thought, maybe let me see what they want to do instead of me kind of coercing them. And
Yes.
once I did that, I found it was a lot easier, because then I thought, okay, look, you know, not everyone wants to be a pro player. Not everyone wants to, you know, learn this or that in a certain way, or a little bit of theory or this or that. They literally, just like I did,
Yeah.
you know, they saw something on the telly, or they heard something or whatever, and they go, oh, that looks cool. I want
Yeah.
to give that a go.
Mhm.
And so, you know, if they want to learn something that's not really guitar driven, it's just got a melody in it, just do that, you know,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it is about fun. And then you'll find the percentage who, you know, do want to do it properly, or take it seriously, or semi-seriously, kind of a half and half. You
Yeah.
know, oh well, I don't want to do it, you know, it's not a career, but you know, I want to do it kind of, I've got my job, or but I want to be in a band, and this quite a serious hobby. And
Yes.
that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, it's great. I said, Ben, it's been fantastic talking to you, mate. Thank you very much for doing this. I really do appreciate it. So, yeah, and Ben, if people want to find you for like sessions and other bits and bobs, like, and for your band, where do they need to look? Is there a website they need to go to find you for this?
Yeah, I
What's the
do
best
need
place
to
to
get a
find
lot
you?
of. I'm doing a lot of stuff this year to kind of conglomerate or make some new things. But if you need something, it's either on Facebook, it's Ben Newton Guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
On Instagram, it's the same, at Ben Newton Guitarist, and they're pretty much the two places that you'll be able to get me on. The band is I think it's Expose Band. It's Expose, but it might be Expose Band. I don't know. And you'll find that on Facebook. That's the band. Tarantino's are on there as well.
Okay.
So just, yeah, stuff like that. There's stuff floating about.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate your
No
time.
problems. But
And I'm
yeah,
sure.
do you know what? I'd do it again if you want. We could
Yeah, yeah.
have another chat. Pick a subject and we'll go.
Yeah, well, I said, I'm sure people are going to enjoy watching this back, and I will as well. So there'll be stuff I've missed. I'm sure that I could have asked you, but I'm sure we'll get you back, mate. I'm looking for guests every week, and I've got the next good few weeks lined up now, which is great. And if anyone's watching this and they do want to be a guest as well, please get in contact with me, because meeting people like yourself, Ben, is fantastic. It's really great.
Cool.
Like all these guitarists all up and down the country that do very similar things. It's just lovely to talk to different people, so you don't feel so much of an alien in the job that you do.
Yeah.
And there's other people that do similar things to you. Like, it's quite a nice thing to do. So, and other people find it interesting. Non-musicians find these things interesting to watch, because they're like, oh, that's really interesting. You know, I'm an accountant, or I do this, that, and the other, and this is really different career path. This is really quite cool to find out about. So,
yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much, Ben. As I said, I'll let you go now, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon.
Yeah, wicked.
Cheers. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, see you soon. Cheers.